On February 12, 1993, a 2-year-old boy was visiting shops with his mother in New Strand Shopping Centre in Bootle, Merseyside, England. The boy and his mother visited various shops, and on several occasions, this 2-year-old boy would break free from his mother and run off, but then would come right back to her. It seemed like he was having a good time. At about 3:40 p.m., they went into a butcher shop, and the boy was right next to her mother when she let go of his hand just for a moment to pay the bill at the shop for the items that she had purchased. When she was done, she looked down, and her 2-year-old son, who was standing just next to her a moment ago, had vanished. The mother ran in panic out of the butcher shop, and this would be filmed by one of the 16 security cameras in the mall searching for her son. The mother quickly realized that her son was missing, and the authorities were alerted, and they began the extensive search for the boy. The CCTV footage at the mall was searched, and it was found that after the boy had let go of his mother's hand, the boy went towards the gate of the shop and was seen standing alone. And just then, 2 older boys approached towards him and called him out to play, and the 2-year-old starts walking with them and goes out of the mall with them. It's haunting to think about, just a child being led away unsuspecting of the horror that was about to unfold. The dead, tortured body of this boy was then found on a railway line 2.5 miles, that is 4 kilometers away in Walton, Liverpool, Merseyside, 2 days after his abduction. It was a murder that shocked the whole nation and continues to remain one of the most shocking murders of the 20th century, considering the fact that this boy was murdered and tortured by 2 10-year-olds, Robert Thompson and John Venables. This is the chilling story of abduction and murder of the 2-year-old James Bulger. A few days later, after the body of James Bulger was discovered, John Venables and Robert Thompson, both 10 at the time, were arrested and charged for the crime. During the interrogation, what Robert Thompson and John Venables revealed was so horrific that it feels surreal. On 12 February 1993, Thompson and Venables were casually observing children apparently selecting a target. The boys were playing truant from their local primary school, which they did regularly. Throughout the day, Thompson and Venables were seen shoplifting items like sweets, batteries, a troll doll, and a can of blue Humbrol modeling paint. One of the boys later in the interrogation said that before abducting Bulger, they were planning to abduct a child, lead him to a busy road outside the shopping center, and push him onto the oncoming traffic. When Thompson and Venables see James standing all by himself at the butcher shop, they approach Bulger asking him to play, to which the 2-year-old agrees. He walks towards them, then one of the boys take him by the hand and walk out of the shopping center. It was later discovered via CCTV the time when James' mother let go of her son's hand to pay for her shopping was at 15:40, and the time when James was seen walking out of the shopping center was at 15:42. It just took 2 minutes. 2 minutes for the 2 10-year-olds to lure James out of the shopping center. Then Thompson and Venables took Bulger to the Leeds and Liverpool Canal, which was around 400 meters from the shopping center, where they dropped him on his head, due to which James suffered various head and face injuries. The boys also joked about pushing Bulger into the canal. An eyewitness said that when he saw Bulger at the canal with the 2 older boys, he was crying uncontrollably. The boys went on to a 2.5-mile walk across Liverpool. They were seen by around 38 people, but most bystanders did nothing to intervene. Many of them noticed that James was distressed, but all assumed that he was in the care of an older brother or brothers. Some witnesses said that James was crying and extremely distressed. Several noticed injuries to his head, a mark on his forehead, and a bump on the right side. Many reported that the little boy was held by the 2 older boys, one on each side, by his arms or his hands, One said that they were dragging him and claimed that one of the boys kicked him in the ribs, and yet another said that the two boys swung the child up as if in rough play. A woman saw a boy take hold of the little boy by the shoulders and shake him briskly. There were further sightings of the three near the railway line about 2 hours after James' abduction. It is reported that two people confronted Venables and Thompson, but they claimed that Bulger was either their brother or was lost, and they were taking him to the nearest police station. Eventually, the boys took Bulger to a railway line near the former Walton and Anfield railway station, close to Walton Park Cemetery. After what followed would be horrifying details that Venables and Thompson confessed that they did to the little 2-year-old boy who had two loving parents and could have had a life full of promises for him. One of the boys took the Humbrol blue paint that they had shoplifted earlier into Bulger's left eye. They kicked him, stomped on him repeatedly several times. The boy crying hysterically at this time, his body all sore and in pain with all the beating Thompson and Venables were giving him, kept trying to get up and escape, but they kept bringing him back to more torture. Thompson and Venables then started throwing bricks and stones at him. They placed batteries in Bulger's mouth and went on to remove his shoes, socks, trousers, and underpants. It was also suspected that the boys had also essayed the little 2-year-old boy, as there were enough evidence found of it. The pathologist's report, which was read out in the court, found that Bulger's foreskin had been forcibly pulled back. After this, still not satisfied with the immense torture that they had inflicted on this little 2-year-old, Thompson and Venables dropped a 10 kg railway fish plate 20-inch long on Bulger. The little 2-year-old had sustained 10 skull fractures as a result of the bar striking his head. Alan Williams, a pathologist, stated that Bulger had suffered so many injuries all over his body, including his face and private areas, 42 in total, that none could be identified as fatal blows. Then Thompson and Venables led Bulger across the railway tracks and weighted his head down with rubble in the hopes that a train would hit him and his death would be ruled as an accident. On 14th February 1993, Bulger's mutilated body was discovered by 4 boys looking for footballs 2 days later. A forensic pathologist testified that Bulger had died before he was struck by the train. Later, Thompson and Venables would be recognized by a woman who saw the CCTV images of the 2 boys on national television and would call the police with their whereabouts. The police then arrested Thompson and Venables, and they were charged on 20th February 1993 with the abduction and murder of James Bulger. They were found guilty on 24th November, making them the youngest convicted murderers in British history. Forensic tests confirmed that the boy had the same blue paint on their clothing as found on Bulger's body. Both had blood on their shoes. The blood on Thompson's shoe was matched to Bulger's through DNA tests. A pattern of bruising on Bulger's right cheek matched the features of the upper part of a shoe worn by Thompson. A paint mark in the toe cap of one of Venables' shoes indicated he must have used some force when he kicked Bulger. Initially, the public outrage was palpable. Candlelight vigils sprung up across the country. People gathered, mourning not just for James, but also expressing their anger towards the boys who had committed such an unforgivable act. Many struggled to comprehend that boys so young could commit such violence. It raised questions about not just the boys, but our society itself. What went wrong? Public sentiment quickly turned to calls for justice. There were protests demanding that the boys be tried as adults. The Home Secretary at the time, Michael Howard, faced intense pressure for the legal procedures surrounding this case. It was a heart-wrenching time. Parents felt the raw emotions of vulnerability and fear. People asked, how could this happen? What if it was my child? When the trial began in November of 1993, the atmosphere was electric with tension and grief. National media coverage was exhaustive, with every graphic detail laid bare for the public. The media painted the boys not just as criminals, but as monsters. Many felt the justice system wasn't royal too. Could it truly hold minors accountable for such heinous acts? Psychologists weighed in, analyzing the boys' background, their environment, and psychological profiles. They attempted to understand how two children could commit such violence. Some argued that it was not just the boys responsible, but the society that failed them. Others simply could not fathom the idea of rehabilitation. Lock them up and throw away the key became a rallying cry for many. But here's where it gets complex. Following the trial, Venables and Thompson were sentenced to 8 years in a secure facility before being released under new identities in 2001. This sparked fresh outrage and controversy. People felt cheated. How could they be given a second chance when James' life was taken? The public debate continued for years. Some argued for the rights of child offenders, while others insisted that they should face lifelong consequences for their actions. The outcry wasn't just an emotional response, it triggered discussions about crime, punishment, and rehabilitation. Thompson and Venables were both released after 8 years in detention in 2001 at the age of 18, and both were given a new secret identity and address. Venables was given a new job and a flat along with a new identity to try to ensure his security and try to give him an ordinary life. He was again arrested for downloading 57 indecent photographs of children on his computer and had also started taking drugs at the same time. He was sentenced to 3 years and 4 months of jail time. He was returned to prison in February of 2010 and was released in August 2013, but then was called back again in November 2017 for the same offense, with parole judges last considering his case in September 2020, which was apparently rejected by the panel board as they were convinced that the release of Venables at this point would not be safe for the protection of the public. Though Thompson is not known to have offended since his release in 2001. To this date, nobody knows why they did it. The CCTV footage of the blonde toddler walking away from Liverpool Strand shopping centre hand in hand with one of his killers still remains one of the most chilling images of the 20th century. Since their release, Denise, mother of James Bulger, has campaigned against their right to anonymity. The money spent on those new identity, which was around 1.5 million for re-establishing their lives. In 2010, it was reported that despite being banned from Merseyside, Venables had visited Liverpool several times, where he had gone clubbing, snorting cocaine, and attended Everton football matches. Denise says that she was terrified for her family. Her book, I Let Him Go, is part memoir and part excoriation of the legal system she says has let her down. But there is another reason she has written it: to bring her son back to life. She is tired of James being remembered simply as the little boy who was murdered. She wants us to know him as the live wire he was. He was very bubbly. He loved dancing to Michael Jackson's videos and making people laugh. My happiest memory of him is him running towards me with his hair bouncing everywhere. He would run into your arms with a big smile on his face. Her book is painful and traumatic at times. Denise reveals she is haunted by the idea that at the end, James was calling for her and she didn't come. She would obsessively ask herself over and over again why she let go of his hand.